Hey folks, taking a drive. I'm not going to look at the camera because I'm driving, but I'm having all these thoughts going through my head, so I figure I'm going to use this as an opportunity to share them with you. So first of all, hey, hope you guys had a great weekend. If you are seeing this live video, it's probably because you are on my Cashflow Guys podcast page, which would tell me that you probably listen to the Cashflow Guys podcast. And if that's the case, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. So today, what I'm doing is something a little different than what you might expect. If you listen to the podcast, you know that I'm a licensed realtor, although I don't do it very often. That said, I've got a situation where I'm trying to help out a seller. Basically, the story goes, these folks from overseas lended money to a guy to flip a house. The guy borrowed the money, bought the house, never did any of the work. Long story short, ran into some difficulties. They wound up having to take the house back. Okay, so they did what they call a deed in lieu of foreclosure, which basically means the previous owner of the house signed the house back over to them. Or not back over to them, but signed the house over to them, signed the deed over to the people that put the money in the deal. And now the just like Bank of America, right? So it's not technically a foreclosure, so to speak, but it's what they call a deed in lieu. So you give the deed in lieu of going through the foreclosure process. The advantage there is it saves the seller the cost of going through an appraisal a foreclosure, and also it saves the borrower the drama of going through a foreclosure and having a foreclosure on their credit report. So there's distinct advantages to both. Okay. Now they have the house back, but keep in mind these folks are they want to be in the business of lending money for profit. They don't want to be in the business of having to take a house back. That's the unfortunate reality sometimes. You know, people commit to do something and for whatever reason they can't do it. I'm not here to play judge and jury, but I just want to cover with you kind of the baseline of how we got there. So today we're doing something different. Now the seller came to me and said, what do? I got this house. The buyer, the guy that owned it, already gutted it. You know, we're in the money lending business. We don't want to be in the house business. I get it. I've invested notes myself. You know, sometimes you want the house back, sometimes you don't. The problem here is, traditionally, guys, when you buy a note, whether it be performing or non-performing, you have yield, okay? And yield is created, let's say you buy a face value note of $100,000, and let's say you pay $50,000 for that $100,000 face value note. So that would create some profit or some yield in there for you, right? And what percentage you buy depends on your experience, who your contacts are. There's all kinds of things that will have an impact on that. We've bought notes at 20, 30 cents on the dollar, and those are usually the ones that have the biggest problems. If something is kind of cut and dry and easy, then the spreads are not as big, obviously, because there's not as many problems. I digress. Because of the situation that the person that now owns the house, the guys, the folks that loan the money, they put out $90,000 in cash. The problem is there's no yield for them. So whatever money we get for them for the sale of this house is it. I mean, that's it. Because it needs a ton of work and they decided they don't want to rehab it. So how we're going to handle this basically is we've set up a little event. We're going to have a bunch of people come out, take a look at the house. Now, what I found is that most folks are not comfortable negotiating, which is unfortunate, because negotiating is how you put great deals together. You sit down and have a conversation. My hope today is that we get some people come out that are not afraid of negotiating, that will look at the situation, figure the rehab cost, and then they will make a written offer to the seller based on that. We will gather those offers and we will turn them over to the seller, let the seller know where we're at, and the seller will choose to accept one of them. To make it easier to buy, the seller has agreed to hold financing for the property. They're going to seller finance it. Now, this is one of the things that I see note investors skip over a lot. Oh, hey, Scott Carson. Speaking of note investors, Scott Carson, guys. Note Closers podcast and Note Night in America and all that crap. But anyway, speaking of notes, so what a lot of note investors don't do is make that when they foreclose on a house, is to make the house then easy, turn it into another note. I've dealt with this time and time again. It's like, hey, why don't you owner finance this house? Make it easy to buy. Because what happens, guys, is that when you make something easier to buy, aka finance it for folks, hold the payment, the price goes up. Well, this seller's pretty smart. See, they got brains. So what they're willing to seller finance it, which will attract more buyers. The more buyers you have, the higher the price goes. The higher the price goes, it's a win-win for the seller. And it creates a stream of income for the seller. Make sense? So folks, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Now, a lot of people would just simply stick this thing on the MLS, or they would just sell it to some wholesaler for, 30 cents on the dollar, which I guess is all fine and good for the wholesaler and the buyer. But anytime that we can create a win-win, which in other words, we can provide value to the buy side and value to the sell side, well, then it makes it easy for us to win, right? So I'm just here to kind of tell you that win-win deals can be done on a regular basis. It comes down to making it very easy to buy, and that's what we're going to do. So 25 grand down makes this happen. Somebody can buy this house that needs a lot of work. Admittedly, it needs a ton of work, but it's gutted. I mean, it's one of those deals where the buyer literally gutted the house, which always makes me wonder, why do people take off purposely perfectly good drywall and plaster? I never understand, but it's got termite damage. It does have a newer roof, but it needs total rehab. I guess the good/bad news is it's already been gutted. So you don't have to go through the drama of gutting it. Frankly, as an experienced rehabber myself, I would tell you, don't ever gut a house unless you absolutely have to, or some government agency requires it. Even then, I would fight that into tooth and nail, because you don't want to be opening up walls. That just doesn't make sense. So guys, I hope you found some value in this. We are having an event on March 7th, by the way. That's coming up right around the corner. Ironically, Scott Carson is here on the live, but we're calling it basically Note Lunch, where we're going to get together. Scott and I and a couple other people are going to get together with you people, and you fine folks, and we're going to talk about investing in real estate, primarily in notes. We're going to talk about exit strategies. We're going to talk about raising money, all that good stuff. Scott, if you're still watching, if you could drop a link here in the comments, a direct link where people can go and check out there. We got a little early bird special. It includes lunch. It's going to be held in Orlando, Florida on March 7th. It's the day before PodFest. That's one day before PodFest. And if Scott's still not on or something like that, I will leave a link down below a little bit later when I get back to the house/office. Yes, I work from home. Why wouldn't I work from home? Soon I'm going to be working from an RV because I'm going to travel the country. But anyway, guys, hope to see you. If you live in Florida or you're willing to come to Orlando, Florida, if you're coming to PodFest, guys, if you're in real estate and you don't have a podcast, or not, you're not thinking about doing a podcast, why the hell not? What a great way to get leads. I'm here to tell you, it's an amazing way to get leads. This actual property I'm going to right now came from my podcast. It's a lead through my podcast. So there you go. But guys, hope to see you out in Orlando on the 7th. Hope you guys are having a great week. Hope you're making money, and we'll talk to you later.